Hey guys, I'm Celia.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're here with you today with Animal Tales Mid-South. Animal Tales Mid-South is traveling to you virtually at your library, school, or church, and with this wonderful program called Chamber of Serpents. Jeff, serpents. This is one of your favorite things. What's a serpent?
A snake.
A snake. Snakes are not my favorite animal ambassadors, but Jeff here happens to love snakes. So we're going to start out with some
Snakes.
snakes. That's right. I've got a wonderful snake that we're going to start our program out with. Her name is Scarlet. Scarlet is a Honduran milk snake. Now I'm going to get Scarlet out, and you guessed it, Scarlet is what color? Red. Red is another, Scarlet is another word for red. So Scarlet is a Honduran milk snake. Isn't she beautiful? She has such wonderful colors. Now, if you notice, she's got just a little bit of skin hanging off there. She just recently was in a shed. You know, kids always wonder, oh, does that hurt her? No, it doesn't hurt her to shed. It's just like she's growing out of her old skin, and she's got some new skin, bright and shiny, ready to go. Now, Scarlet is a Honduran milk snake. So she is part of the king snake family. King snakes are super cool. If you watch our program, Animal Tales, Fantastic Creatures and Where They're Found, you'll meet our friend Elvis, the king snake. King snakes are pretty cool. There's about 52 different varieties of king snakes, and one of those is the Honduran milk snake. Now, milk snakes, there's about 27 different milk snakes. All of them have beautiful, bright colors and stripes. Her stripes are super important. Her stripes are one of her coolest features. Her stripes help her with something called mimicry. Mimicry is when an animal mimics another animal to trick its predators and preys. Now, one of the things that Scarlet does is she has these really cool stripes. And her stripes, if you notice, are red, black, and this white color, which is supposed to kind of look yellowish. Now, the riddle goes red on black, friend of Jack, red on yellow, kill a fellow. So the one that's striped with the red on the yellow, that one is the very dangerous, venomous coral snake. But this one right here is the non-venomous milk snake. And she uses that color pattern to trick her prey and predators into thinking she's something different. Now, where does she come from? Scarlet comes from over here. I told you she was a Honduran milk snake. So she's right here in Honduras. Now, remember I said there's all kinds of different milk snakes. There are milk snakes from both the North Americas and the South Americas. So we can find milk snakes and king snakes all throughout this area. But this specific one, the Honduran milk snake, is specifically from Honduras. Now, Jeff has a snake with him that he's going to bring out that doesn't come from this side of our map. Tell us about your friend.
So today we have Wally. Wally is a great snake. He is called a coastal carpet python. This snake is found all over the western coast of Australia. He can actually be found as far south as Tasmania. Now, this is an average size coastal carpet python. Wally, I would say, we'll hold him up. I'm 6'3", so Wally, when he's stretched out, is a little over 6.5 feet. A baby in snake sizes. He will get up to about 14 feet. Now, if you notice, he seems a little active, overly sensitive right now? Well, there's a reason for that. Remember that Scarlet was coming out of a shed. He is going into a shed. So because of that, if you look at his eyes, they're really glazed over. Now, they're glazed over because he is losing his old skin. It'll get completely white over his eyes. He won't be able to see anything. He'll be virtually blind. So at that point, he'll excrete a mucus. It's a liquid, really. And what he does with that is he lets it come out through his skin, and when it does, it separates that old skin from the new. He'll hook onto something under his chin, and he'll come right out of his skin in a couple, 2 to 4 hours. Now, he does that about once a month for his entire life. This guy can live 20 to 30 years, so that's a very long life for a snake. He has some pretty neat other things about him. So he will, because he likes to hunt on the coast, anywhere from the trees, and if you notice, he's got quite a grip, so he can do that. So he'll go anywhere from the trees down into the surf. He likes to be right around the water. He'll catch fish, loves rodents, and he'll catch mammals in the trees as well as birds. Any of those things. He can extend his body out about 4 feet to catch stuff. He has a great ability. If you think about the ability to hold yourself out straight, think if you could do that. This guy can go do 2/3 of his body that way. Now, something else that I really love about this animal is the fact that when they hunt, a lot of snakes like to hunt in the evening or even at night. This guy will hunt, he's called diurnal to crepuscular. That just means he'll hunt anywhere from during the day to into the evening. It's his best opportunity to catch his prey. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from snakes now. We're going to learn about lizards. Now, Celia's bringing out in a lizard that's one of my favorite animals, and I'm going to let her take over now.
All right. I have with me Tim. Tim the tegu. Tim is a black and white tegu from Argentina. Tim is really cool. He's in the monitor family. This particular type of lizard is related to all of the monitor lizards. If you look at Tim, remember I told you he was black and white tegu. Well, look at this guy. Definitely you can see why he got his name, the black and white tegu, because he's black and white in color. Where Tim lives in the trees in South and Central America, if you look at his scales, you'll see he would blend in wonderfully with the tree bark. So if you look at those scales, he would actually look like he was blending in with the tree, part of the tree, and that would be a great way for him to trick his predators. Now, when I brought Tim out, Jeff said I was going to show you a lizard, and you're like, yeah, he definitely looks like a lizard, but he's a lot bigger than the lizards that live in my backyard. He's bigger than the lizards that probably live in your backyard too. When Tim is full grown, he can be 3 feet long. Oh my goodness, he's really big. He's often kept as a favorite of the lizards for pets because he's super intelligent. Tim can actually learn to come to his name. He can learn to walk on a leash. He can be litter box trained. He's super smart. He's also super crafty. Not only does he like to climb in those trees, but he's a good swimmer. He can swim in the water. He loves to eat fish, but he also loves to eat birds and eggs from the trees. He eats many other lizards and snakes and insects and small mammals. If you notice when you're looking at Tim, he's sticking out his tongue, and I hope you're getting to see a really good look at his big, long tongue. He's not doing that because he's being rude. He's doing that because he's smelling his environment. He's kind of getting a little sense for if you guys out there are a predator or if you're his prey. Now, if you look at Tim and you look at the side of his head, you can distinctly see those holes on each side of his head. Those are his ears. Tim has ears, which is different than the first two snakes that we saw. They didn't have any ears because they don't have external ears to hear with. Now, when we look over here at this map, we look at where South America is, and right down here we see Argentina. And that's where Tim is primarily from. He is primarily from Argentina. But like I said, there are many different monitor lizards, and they all have their own habitat that they're familiar with. Would you guys like to see another lizard? Jeff is going to bring out a lizard. Wait a minute. I thought you were going to bring out a lizard.
I did bring a lizard.
Oh my goodness.
So this particular lizard is a little bit different. Everyone say, hi, Boris. So Boris is a Russian legless lizard. Now, this guy is found throughout Northern Europe and into Russia. He has a few things about him that are quite unique, but he's 100% lizard. So he does have eyelids, so he has the ability to blink. Snakes don't have eyelids. Lizards do. He has the ability to hear because he does have those two holes. And he has one more thing that lizards have that snakes don't. It's a sternum. That's right. So he has a sternum, and it makes it to where he is 100% lizard. Now, this guy has a special diet. He'll eat rodents. He'll eat insects. He eats all of those things. But his favorite food is snails. He has an amazing ability to bite down. He gets the whole thing, shell and all, in one bite. He has an amazing bite. So he uses that to catch snails as far as crunching them, and he eats them right up, no problem. Also, he has something else. If you notice here on the side of his body, he's got a line. So that line is the end of his body. The rest of this is tail. Now, if he's hunted from above, and if you look at him, if you look at Boris, you can see how long he is. Well, from the air, that looks like a big worm if you are a bird of prey, and even snakes, because they like those as well, right? So what he'll do is he will be rolling along, and he likes rocky areas. He likes to be in really a dry, arid type area of the world. So what he'll do, he's running along the ground, crawling along the ground. And while he's crawling along the ground, if a bird of prey comes up, it does pick him up. His tail, he has a muscle right here. He actually has the ability to release that tail. Well, if he does, his body falls down on the ground. Boris lives another day. The bird thinks it's got something because the tail keeps wiggling, so he thinks he's got his prey, flies away, and Boris lives another day to tell the story. Now, this animal is found throughout this part of the world. You find him right in here, anywhere from south of Moscow right into here. Now, he will live about 15 to 20 years as on a normal lifespan, and they say they get 2 to 3 feet long. Well, Boris is only 4 years old, and he's already that long. Did I mention that reptiles never stop growing? So this guy will grow every day of his life. Now, he's every bit a reptile, of course, and he is cold-blooded. Oh yeah, and by the way, he also has scales, but his scales just feel and look different than other reptiles. So we've seen 2 lizards. We've seen 2 snakes. Celia, what do you have next for us?
I have a tricky reptile. Whenever we say reptiles, we forget about these guys. What is this? This is a cicada tortoise, and I'm going to get Jeff to come back and help us hold on to him, and we can talk a little bit about Speedy. All right, Speedy, you said he was a reptile, but look at him. Does he have scales? Yeah.
Where does he have scales?
Well, I guess his scales are right there on his head.
They are.
He might have scales on his legs.
Now, he's actually nicknamed what?
Spur-thighed tortoise. These really cool spikes here, they kind of feel like big, nasty toenails. Uh-oh, he could be called poopy tortoise today. These spur-thighed tortoise right here, he has these spurs on his thighs. What can he do with those? Tell us how he uses them to protect himself.
With tortoises, turtles, and terrapins, there are similarities and there are differences. So a tortoise, when he is scared, what he'll do is he'll push his head and push your head in. And when he does, he'll also bring his legs in. Bring your legs in. Now, when he does, this will actually protect him from the outside. A terrapin, they have some of that, but they have a softer shell. Then the turtle. Turtle has like a V, and he has the ability to close that up. So if you've ever seen a turtle close himself up in his shell, that is his way of hiding. Well, the tortoise has to do it this way because it's just a little different for him. Also, this guy is 100% herbivore. He loves to eat all kinds of vegetables. He primarily eats green leafy things in the wild. Now, he is found in the savanna as well as the Serengeti.
Let's look at his shell. So, kids out there, and Jeff, what do you think? Can he come out of his shell as he grows?
I don't think so.
No, he can't come out of his shell. Everybody take your hand, rub your hand right down the middle of your back. You feel those bumps down the middle of your back? That's your spine. And this is his spine, his skeletal system. And so he uses this shell to protect himself. We say he travels with his home, but not only is it protecting himself, it's part of him. And as he grows, his shell grows too. I asked Jeff to come help me by holding him because how much does he weigh?
He's about 75 to 80 pounds.
Whoa! You didn't know I had such good muscles, did you?
Now, this is actually the third largest breed of tortoise in the world. The Aldebrays, which are amazing, they are the largest breed. And then the Galapagos. Third is this guy. He can get up to 250 pounds. My favorite part is how long they can live. You know, there is one on record that's lived over 180 years.
Oh my goodness, I hope Speedy doesn't live that long. He'll live longer than me and you, Jeff.
Put together.
Definitely. All right, Jeff's going to put Speedy up, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about reptiles. Now, first, we saw two different kinds of snakes. And we know snakes are reptiles. I mean, after all, this program is called this program is actually Chamber of Serpents. We're wanting you to think about the fantastic creatures, but this is Chamber of Serpents. So think about that word serpents. Serpents is snakes. We know snakes are reptiles. They're cold-blooded. Their body is covered with scales, and they start out their life as an egg. Then we saw two kinds of lizards. We saw the European legless lizard that lived up here, and we saw the black and white tegu from down here. Both of those lizards also are reptiles. Then we saw Speedy, the tortoise. And Speedy is a reptile, even though he doesn't have some of the things that you think about with reptiles. He did have scales. He does start out his life as an egg, and he also has scales that shed, and he's cold-blooded. Now this next guy that I'm going to show you, this one is super tricky. People always think that's a reptile. And whenever I ask them to tell me different kinds of reptiles, they include this animal. This is Jeremiah. Jeremiah is an African bullfrog. Frogs aren't reptiles. Frogs belong to a special group of animals called amphibians. Amphibians are super special. This is an African bullfrog, Jeremiah the African bullfrog. And when you look at Jeremiah, I don't know if you can tell all the way from your home, but Jeremiah is really, really big. He's actually 3 pounds in weight, and he can grow to be 5 pounds. Oh my goodness, that's a really big frog. Bigger than the frogs that we find in our yard here in Tennessee. Now, if you look at Jeremiah, you'll see his color. Oh, he's like a muddy brownish green color, isn't he? This muddy brownish green color is the same color as the slug and the slime in the bottom of the creeks and the ponds and up against the riverbanks where he lives. Jeremiah uses his color to trick his predators. His color helps him blend in with his environment. His color allows him to be an ambush hunter. What is an ambush hunter, you say? An ambush hunter is an animal that sits very quietly and waits, and his food actually comes right up to him. His food comes right up to him because they don't think he's alive. They just see him blending in with the embankment or with the bottom of the river or the side of the mud bank where he's living, and he blends in and they come right up to him and he goes and he grabs them because he's an ambush hunter. What can he eat? Oh, he can eat all kinds of things. Basically, we laugh and say he can eat anything he can fit in his mouth. He's definitely carnivorous. Now, if I was to give Jeremiah a kiss, would he turn into Prince Charming? No. What about the fact that I'm holding him? Would he give me warts? No. Both of those things are just not true. But we don't recommend holding Jeremiah because it's not good to hold amphibians. How do amphibians get their water? Amphibians actually get their water from absorbing it through their skin. That's one of the characteristics of an amphibian, and that's what makes him different than our friends, the reptiles we saw. Amphibians get their water through their skin. They absorb it through their skin. The other animals that we saw, they usually drink their water. Now, because they absorb the water through their skin, they are very, very special. Did you know that amphibians have the family of animals that are the most endangered and extinct every year? Why would amphibians be getting endangered and extinct every year? Well, it has to do with the way they get their water because they absorb their water through their skin. Now, this guy right here, Jeremiah, he is a African bullfrog. So we find him right here in the continent of Africa. He is an amphibian, not a reptile like the other animals. But Jeff has one more reptile before we wrap it up today. Would you guys like to see this reptile? He could definitely wrap it up around you. Oh, Jeff, what is that?
Everybody say hi, Monty. Monty is a Burmese python. I love this little guy. He is very friendly. Now, the Burmese python comes from Southeast Asia. You know, in this part of the world, they are so common that this animal, they've kind of taken it to a different direction. It used to be that they would find them in their rice fields, things like that. Now, do you realize they actually have farms of these things? So what they'll do is they will farm them, make it to where they get to live in a place that they're happy, and they farm them just like you would any other farm animal. And they use every single thing about them. So they have become an asset from the standpoint of they make things out of them, and the food from them is something that they can also consume. Now, the Burmese python can get huge. This little guy is, he's only about 10 or 11 feet. So he, in Burmese python size, is not that big. You know, the females get anywhere from 18 to 24 feet. That's a big snake. Females in snakes tend to be larger. A lot of times, snakes can have the same size. King cobras come to mind. They tend to be about the same size as far as male and female. But in the pythons, the females are significantly bigger. Now, this little guy, he just shed. Remember, we've seen two different stages there. See how beautiful he is? Isn't he gorgeous? I just love this color on this guy. Now, they like to live in very marshy land. They absolutely want to stay in the water as often as possible. They really do want to consume rodents, pretty decent sized mammals. They will eat fish, but it's not their favorite. What they really want is the big stuff. And this guy can consume a lot of food. He can eat 1/3 of his weight every single week. So when they do that, they get much bigger, much faster. Now, we feed ours so they can maintain, stay healthy. We don't try to see how big we can get them. Now, of course, over time, they still get bigger. And this guy will live up to 35 years. That's a long time for a snake. He does have an extremely strong grip, but he's pretty used to being handled, so he's very laid back. In fact, if you notice, he's such a good boy. He's doing his bubble. So he's such a good little guy. He's used to being on stage, and he loves for people to see. Now, one other thing about this snake is he does want to eat in the evening. We talked about this earlier. That is a crepuscular animal. So in the evening, when the heat of the day is gone, he'll kind of come up out of the marshes. He'll find stuff to eat. He'll kind of ride along the top of the water. He'll get something, and that's when he wants to consume his food. All right? And so this is the last animal that we have brought for Animal Tales. And we wanted to just tell you how much we appreciate you being here. Celia.
All right, so while you put Monty away, I'm going to talk a little bit about the animals that we did see and where they were from. And then we're going to talk just a teeny little bit about the actual reptiles. So first off, we saw our Honduran milk snake from Central America. Then we saw our coastal carpet python from Australia. Then we saw Tim the tegu. He comes from Argentina. We saw Boris, the European legless lizard. And then we saw Speedy, the cicada tortoise, who comes to us from Africa. And then also Jeremiah is an African bullfrog. Now, we didn't talk very much about some of the 2 other reptiles we don't actually have living here at Animal Tales. One of those you can find right in your backyard if you live in Florida. What do you think that could be? You got it. Alligators and crocodiles. So alligators and crocodiles are reptiles. Think about it. They're cold-blooded. They have scales on their body, and they start out their life as an egg. But then there's one more reptile, and you're thinking, Celia, I can't think of any other reptile. This one is actually extinct. I'll let you think about that for a second. What is that extinct reptile? I bet there's some of you out there that love to watch movies about this one. You're right. It's dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were a reptile too. Think about it. They had scales. They started out their life as an egg, and they were definitely cold-blooded. Now that we've explored the world of reptiles, and we talked about the one misconception that our friend Jeremiah falls in. Jeremiah's a frog. Frogs are amphibians. They are cold-blooded. They do start out their life as an egg, but they are not a reptile, right? They're actually amphibians. So I hope that after today's program, you've learned something about some reptiles and some of these wonderful cold-blooded creatures, something that will keep you from being scared of the creepy cold-blooded creatures, and something that will help you be able to identify the ones that you might find in your very own backyard. Thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget to thank your librarian or the person who put this program on for you. Let them know how much you appreciate it. If you enjoyed our program today, you can check us out on our website. It's www.animaleducation.com. Like us On Facebook, we're Animal Tales LLC. We've come to you today from Animal Tales Mid-South, and we hope to see you again real soon.